Thank you again for our just beautiful home. The first one with whom God entered into covenant. A covenant, I will be your God and you will be my people, was Abram, whose name meant one of noble birth. And because he entered into the covenant with God, his name was changed to Abraham, the father of the multitude, even though he had no child. But the people of the covenant are not known as either Abram or Abraham. Now the fulfillment of the covenant promise of an heir to be the father of the multitude was fulfilled in Isaac, whose name, depending upon how you translate it, either means the Lord laughs or the Lord makes a joke. Kind of a tough thing to go through life, right? But the people who are seeking the fulfillment of the covenant are not called Isaac either. The people of faith, whether born to it or grafted into it, are known as Israel. The one who prevails with God, the one triumphant with God, Israel. This is the name given to the people of the covenant. This is the name given to the people of faith. But before Israel was Israel, Israel was Jacob. Jacob, whose name literally means he who grasps the heel. The trickster's planter. Jacob. Before there's an Israel, there must be a Jacob. Today, I want to try and have us revisit the story of Jacob, especially as Jesus knew that story and how Jesus reshaped its telling in the magnificent parable of the prodigal son. Actually, maybe a better name is the story of the good father with two lost sons. But Jesus' story and Israel's story as a people are essentially the same story. And understanding that story is going to help us understand our story. Now, last week we made a comment about reading an entire chapter. Judy was a little anxious I might be reading to you 9 chapters today, but that's incorrect. I'm just going to try and summarize Jacob's story. But I want you to understand, Jesus takes some liberties with Jacob's story to make it his story. For instance, he leaves out the names of the characters, but the dynamics are essentially the same. He shifts a few things. The one welcoming is not the jilted brother, but it is the jilted father. And in some ways, he reverses things in that where Jacob leaves penniless and comes back rich, the prodigal leaves rich and comes back penniless. But they are essentially the same story. And they are our story. As I have mentioned to you on many occasions, we only have 6 or 7 stories. But we reshape them and tell them to ourselves over and over and over again that we might learn from them. Because the stories we tell ourselves are the ways that we understand our own story. Came across a list made by a literature professor, and he said that there are 7 plots. There's a monster that needs to be slain in order for people to be safe. There's the story of rags to riches, where someone poor manages to overcome and succeed and become prosperous. Or the other way around, as Jesus told it. There's the story of a quest, a search for something. I don't know about you, I'm always having a dream about where something's missing and I'm trying to find it. I spend the whole night running around looking for it. We're out of class, we want to find something. If it's not a thing, it's a place, a life, it's something we're on a quest. Sometimes, whatever that holy grail is, we're not sure what it is, but we're after the quest. And involved often in the quest is a story of exile, where we have to leave home, go to far country, and one time we come back. And then, of course, there's the classic story of covenant. People who are meant to be together, meant to fall in love, and obstacles are constantly in their way. And in the end, even though they have conflict with one another, they finally find themselves in love again. Oh my, there's just rings of romantic topics. Then there's the tragedy, the villain who must be slain. You know, the one we have no sympathy for, the Goliaths, the Jezebels. And then society, the world is made right by their demise and all rejoice. And then there's that great twist on the story where the villain is reborn. As in Jesus' story, he comes to himself, he comes to his senses. His life is turned around on some dramatic action, and he becomes a different kind of person. Like I said, it's just 7 stories. And those 7 plot lines are usually filled with just a few basic character types. Carl Jung, the psychologist, listed the archetypes, the basic characteristics. Some people are motivated by stability and control. And so they either the creators, the caretakers, or the rulers. Some people are looking for a sense of belonging and enjoyment. These are the jesters, the regular guys, the lovers. Some folks are looking to balance risk and mastery. They become the heroes, the outlaws, the magicians. And finally, there are those who are looking for freedom and fulfillment. They are the classic figures of the innocent, the explorer, the sage. And we tend to move through those different kinds of character roles ourselves. I would like to think of myself as the regular guy. You know, the Charlie Brown, the George Bailey, the Clark W. Griswold. You know, the one who's just a regular guy trying to pull off the perfect family vacation, trying to save the town from the clutches of the potters. But who keeps on seeming to find the football pulled away when he comes to it. But I have to recognize that my self-understanding is also shaped by all those other roles, because I have been in all of them in one way or another. And so given this movie, we got 7 stories, 12 characters, they all come together. And in Jesus' telling of the prodigal son, they all appear, but especially in Jacob's original story, as Scripture shares it with us, they're all there too. Let's remember Jacob's story. Isaac, God's joke, has babies. The covenant is going forward, and he has them at the same time. Esau is born first. Hairy, red hair, big. Jacob is born second, clutching the heel of his brother. And now we have conflict in the story. You know, I'm an only child, and so I don't quite understand some of that sibling conflict stuff. And I'm also an adopted only child, which means I'm sort of a sojourner in my own family. So I'm almost standing kind of as an outsider looking at relationships, almost all of them never. I mean, I will tell you this, I have seen enough of Bonnie's family to be grateful to be an only child. Just saying. But we look at these dynamics and we all kind of know how they work. And it starts out with conflict. The conflict comes at birth with Jacob. Purely because Esau beat him out of the womb. And they are in conflict. Dylan Thomas once wrote, "It snowed last year. I made a snowman. My brother knocked down a snowman. I knocked down my brother. And then we had tea. And it's amazing sometimes how families do find their equilibrium even in the midst of the conflicts. So Jacob and his brother have this conflict. But Jacob's conflict is also with his father. He wants what his father has. In fact, he wants as much of it as he can get. And he convinces his big, hairy, outdoorsy brother that a third of his father's estate way off sometime in the future is a good payment for a bowl of bean soup right now when you're hungry. He manipulates it. Read a novel on one occasion where a fellow is accused of being a manipulator. He says, I try to think of myself as an outcome engineer. But he's a manipulator, and he plays upon Esau's hunger and the distant reward of the inheritance that beats him up. And then Isaac decides that he's about to die. Now, are you with me? Did you think that Isaac died while Jacob was off in the far country getting married? I did, until I actually read the story again. Jacob lives dozens and dozens of years after Jacob comes back. And in fact, the only time that Jacob had left his father's camp ever returns is to bury him next to his mother and him. There's a relationship that's left hanging and unresolved. But I digress. Jacob not only wants his brother's share of the inheritance, he wants that special word of blessing. That pat on the back, pat on the head, that affirmation. And Isaac wants to give that blessing to Esau, his first. But Jacob and his mother conspired together to beat Esau even out of that blessing. And I guess because Isaac thinks he's giving a dying blessing to his son, I always thought he must have died shortly thereafter. But check it out, doesn't it? Now, Esau seems to be a pretty easygoing guy, but he's been beat out of a third of the estate. And now he's beaten out of his father's dying blessing. Things are not going well for Jacob. Around the house, his mother suggests now's the time to go look for a wife, and as far away from here as possible would be a really good idea. So he leaves for the far country. Remember, he leaves penniless. Jesus' prodigal leaves rich. But it's a sum different. Rags and riches, they come and go. Jacob leaves, goes to the far country where he runs into Laban, a man very similar to his own father, a man who has a good bit of property. Where Isaac had 2 sons, Laban has 2 daughters. He falls in love, coveting, with Rachel. But Laban wants his labors for 7 years as an indentured servant. He gladly gives it to Rachel's hand. But when wedding day comes, he discovers he has not married Rachel, but he has married his sister Leah. So he stays another 7 years so that he can get the girl of his dreams. And along the way, he's acquired a huge amount of property. He is rich, prosperous, and it occurs to him that it's time to go home. See, he's got 2/3 estate waiting for him back in the other country, plus everything he's already acquired. He probably thinks Isaac's dead too. He'd like to go collect. So he gathers up his wives and his flocks and his servants, and he starts heading back. Now, the part I left out was when he left his father's territory, he had a dream, his head on a rock was a pillow, a ladder up in heaven. Angels descending and ascending, and God's word telling him everything's going to work out great because you're not a special guy. But now when he comes back, he has a different kind of dream. A waking dream. The kind of dreams we have when we cannot sleep. When all that we have done is catching up with us. And the darkness falls. You see, Jacob had sent his wives and his children, his flocks, his herds, his servants, all ahead of him because he heard that Esau heard he was coming back, and Esau's coming with 400 men. That doesn't sound good. So in that dark night of the soul, he struggles with this mysterious figure, this man, this monster, this angel, this God. And he prevails, and hence his name is changed as one who prevails with God. Israel. And then surprises, as he limps back into the home country, here comes Esau, not to profit, not to slay him, but to hug him. I've always kept a mental image. Remember Gilligan's Island? You know, the captain always gets really frustrated with Gilligan and do something and get furious. And then Gilligan would somehow disappear or find himself in some sort of difficulty. Then Gilligan would be recovered, and the captain would grab him and lift him up, shake him, and laugh. He's so glad to get him back. Well, that's kind of how I envision this scene. Big, outdoorsy, hairy Esau comes and gets little bitty Gilligan-esque Jacob and greets him in the most surprising possible way with joy. Thanksgiving. Little Roman has come home. In Jesus' story, it's the father who greets the prodigal this way. The brother stands off in the darkness, angry, resentful of the love and affection showered on the younger boy. So that's Jacob's story. It becomes Israel's story. Jesus understood it to be their common story as a people. It is a story that encompasses all of us. Because we can always find ourselves in it. We're one of these characters. These stories, because all of them, all the plot lines are in Jacob's story, in Jesus' story of the prophet. And we all hear, feel, and experience this. St. Augustine said that the greatest philosopher of ancient Rome lived in the 1st century BCE was a fellow by the name of Marcus Terentius Varro. Yet none of his writings survive, except in the memory of others who wrote about him. And as a philosopher, he said that we human beings all must come to grips with and answer certain questions. Who are we? Are we gods, people, spirits, consciousness? What? Who are we? Where are we? What is the framework of our existence? Is it in a certain place? Or is it in a certain society? Is it in the world, the universe? Where are we? What is the nature of things? Are they real? Substantial? Are they illusionary? Dreams? Are they fantasies? Hopes? And perhaps most important, when are we? When do we live? Forever? In time? Past? Present? Future? Varro came to the conclusion that we live constantly in the present, in a constant stream of presence. And if you think about it, we do. But how many of us spend most of our attention on the past? And in our memory, what happened in the past gets cropped and photoshopped and enhanced and edited. Our memories are not a perfect record of what really happened. It's what really happened as funneled through all the rest of who we are, how we see ourselves, the world around us. But also, There are those who are constantly living in the future. Their ambitions, their desires, their lusts, their wants, all in the way. The real challenge is to appreciate the value of the present. The swirling vortex of past and future come around us and animate the present with meaning, if we are there for it. In that swirl of events, we find who we are, what the meaning of our lives is. And the telling of the story opens that up. One of the characteristics of Jacob is he can't wait. He can't wait for his father to die so he can get his stuff. He can't wait to get out of there, to get on with his life, to be the one. He can't wait. The very essence of sin is we can't wait. We want to make it ourselves. We want to do it with our own hands. We want to break out of the storyline and grab the very essence of sin. We can't wait. And having failed to wait on the Lord, we now urgently, desperately seek a way home. Let me tell you a little bit about my story. My dad went into the Army beginnings of World War II and stayed. He was a soldier. He was born to be a soldier. He was good at it. Unfortunately, when I was 16 years old, he had a heart attack, and the Army decided he needed to leave being a soldier. So he was out of work, and it was kind of a tough time for us on every possible level. We were now trying to live on 40% of what my dad had been earning before. And of course, he had the great blessing of a 16-year-old boy to exacerbate his struggles by wanting everything everybody else had. And of course, to do that, of course, I worked 2 jobs. I bagged groceries at Fort First on Thursday night and Saturday morning. And in between, I worked in the grocery store at Greenbrier Mall, bagging groceries, stocking shelves, trying to make change for those people who bought groceries there. My dad, before he landed the job as the director of environmental health in Clayton County, my dad sold shoes for the J.C. Penney Company there at Greenbrier Mall. I remember vividly one day working a cash register, and my father came into the store in his blazer, tie, dress slacks, with his J.C. Penney's name tag tagged out his front pocket. He wanted to see when my lunch period might be, perhaps he could coordinate the 2 we could have lunch. Some of my friends in the store said, "Who was that? Who was that?" And I didn't know about it. In that. You see, in my stupid 17-year-old self, I was ashamed that my father was on his hands and knees down the hall at J.C. Penney's, putting shoes on people's feet. By the way, he's pretty good at it. You know, 25 years as a sergeant major, when he told you those shoes fit well, they look good on you, you ought to buy them. People just felt like they needed to buy those shoes. But at 17, I was embarrassed. I was proud of the dad who had all the golden stripes and all the colorful ribbons. I was embarrassed by the man with the plastic name tag on his hand. I could get my hands on that 17-year-old boy. I'd shake him till his teeth fell out. Of course, that makes sort of a space-time continuum thing that might be hard to work out. Be and like avoid it, like somebody else would fill it. had no sin and foolishness. But if it had not been for the sinfulness and the foolishness, then the redemption would have never been possible. Not that we ought to sin, or even sin greatly, but to know that God brings us together. God's love for us never ends. Even when we're embarrassed about God. I understand how desperately Jacob wanted his father's blessing too. So much so that he could even lie to him. One of the trials, fulfilling moments of my life was as my father lied on an examination table in the oncologist's office just before he was told that there was no chemo, there was no surgery for the kind of cancer he had. It was just a matter of time, not much. It was then that my father said, you know, Ricky, I'm proud of you. I wouldn't trade anything in the world for that. Well, that split-second stream of all those presents in my life. I would share with you that if there's been someone of whom you were embarrassed, if there's someone who wounded you and pushed the water, if there's some dark corner, some recess, somebody sitting there where there's something unresolved, address it today. If Jacob has any character, it is that after he struggles with his conscience and self, his God, he gets up the next day and he confronts the brother he cheated, lied to, and is surprised by grace. Is there folk in your life hanging out there like that? You may be surprised what God can do if you will get up and go. Talk to him. The glorious scene, as Jesus tells it, is our Heavenly Father standing on the porch looking to the horizon and seeing the outline, that unmistakable shadow of the one he loves, who has come to himself, come to herself, and is trying, stumbling, limping his or her way home. If you will get up from your jacket, limping, struggling, and start heading home, God will run to meet you. Throw his arms around, kiss you, put the coat on, kill the fatted calf, rejoicing in heaven will be beyond anything you can do. The good shepherd is the good father. He is the one whose story beckons us to come home. That way may take you some places you may not like to go, some unsettled, unresolved stuff that you need to address. But the way home